Kraven the Hunter, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, is out. It's bordering on so bad that it's fun, but it probably should have been like 25 minutes shorter to really hit that. It's a pretty simple movie, decent action, very violent, but it is just really poorly written. The acting's fine. The characters are pretty much paper thin. We get a flashback that's way too long, and the editing on this was horrendous. Not something I normally mention, but it's actually hard to follow some of the fights because it's so bad. And then throughout the movie, numerous times, their lips don't match the words on screen. So they clearly went back and did like an ADR type thing where they dubbed over it, and it ends up looking like fucking Kung Pao.
I implore you to reconsider.
Okay.
So let's just get into it. Sergei and Dimitri's dad, Nikolai Kravinov, is a gangster. He wants them to follow in his footsteps, and they're off at boarding school in America. Their mother dies. She was put in an institution. We don't really know why. So he takes them hunting in North Ghana, where Sergei, which is Aaron Taylor Johnson, and later Kraven the Hunter, gets attacked by a lion. Calypso, who's a little girl in the area, gives this special juice to Sergei to help keep him alive. And this also gives him beast powers from this lion because their blood got mixed together. And he gets tired of putting up with his dad. He leaves his dad, Nikolai, and his brother, Dimitri, behind. And then he becomes Kraven the Hunter. And he kills bad guys and poachers and just kind of whoever's on his list. And everyone knows him as the Hunter, which apparently he's notorious. And then Dimitri grows up and plays a piano and has his own bar. And his dad's just disappointed in him. And the main driving character for the movie is Nikolai, their father, who just emphasizes strength and being strong because he's a gangster and lives in that world. So Sergei and Dimitri meet up when they're older for his birthday. Dimitri gets captured by a rival gang group and held for ransom. And we find out that this is a trap for Sergei. And he goes and tries to rescue him, survives the trap, obviously. And he gets his information from Calypso, who's now a lawyer in London. And he eventually hunts down where Dimitri is. Dimitri's being held by this guy called the Rhino, who also has this weird ability where his skin turns into rhino skin.
Surprise, motherfucker.
And he's invulnerable, but it's super painful. The Rhino goes after Sergei and Calypso, along with this guy called the Foreigner, who has this super OP ability to just count to 3. And when he does that, it makes eye contact. Everyone else is just standing still. So he can kill pretty much anyone at will. Luckily for Kraven, he gets saved by Calypso because the Foreigner's fucking him up. He goes and fights the Rhino surrounded by a bunch of buffaloes, stabs the Rhino in his medicine hole, and then eventually wins. The Rhino tells him that he can't see the obvious, and it was Nikolai, Sergei and Dimitri's dad, who sent the Rhino after Kraven. So Kraven lets his dad get eaten by a bear in the woods deliberately.
Boom. Roasted.
Dimitri becomes the chameleon, and Kraven and Dimitri go their separate ways. And that's the movie. Pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy, nothing unpredictable. Some really just bad dialogue. Some acting. They find an excuse to take Aaron Taylor Johnson's shirt off a few times because he's ripped as shit. Russell Crowe totally phones his performance in. I guess he's just getting fat and collecting paychecks. The kid who plays Dimitri was one of the twin emperors in Gladiator 2. He's much better in this. And the action does have some neat stuff. And that's kind of where I think it's a little bit fun, is each fight feels really different. Like they really make their use of the environment. So the movie opens with an 8-minute action scene, which you can watch on YouTube right now. Kraven breaks into a prison, kills this bad guy, and then escapes. It's all fine the way it's done. Special effects are horrendous, by the way, throughout this movie. There's another action set piece where Nikolai is defending himself in Dimitri's club. And that one, you can't understand anything because the camera is just cutting every half second and it's cutting all over the place. It's really hard to watch. But then when Dimitri gets kidnapped and Kraven goes after him, that's a pretty cool one too because he's running down buildings. He's trying to fight these cars and catch them. There's one where he goes to this monastery because he thinks Dimitri's there. That's a pretty neat one you see in the trailer where he's running on the walls. There's guys with machine guns, some of which get cut out literally between shots thanks to the editors. And he's just fucking people up. I like the way that he fights. It's pretty brutal. He uses all kinds of different weapons like blow darts and different knives, throwing knives, little machete type things. So a pretty cool variety. And then the last one is with him and the Foreigner and then him and Rhino. And the Foreigner one is kind of bullshit because he's so OP and he gets killed by Calypso, who's a fucking lawyer.
Alrighty then.
He gets an arrow through his eye because he's not paying attention. Kind of seems weird because whenever he's got his glasses off, everyone in the area stops moving. But whatever. I guess they had to do some bullshit to kill him because he was way too overpowered. And the one with him and Rhino is weird because there's a scene in the movie when he's young and all these buffaloes stampede at him, but one stops right in front of him, so the rest will just run around him. And then after they all pass by, the buffalo kind of nods at him and then goes along. And I took that as like, oh, the buffalo are aware that he's a predator just instinctually now that he's beastly.
I run things around here. Now sometimes busters be disrespecting you.
But then for the final fight, he uses the buffalo to stampede into their cars because they think he's dead and they're driving away. And they had Dimitri with them. And obviously they have a convoy, including a bus. So he uses the buffalo to stampede at him and flip all their vehicles. And then for him and Rhino to have their final showdown, the buffalo just circle around them, setting up kind of like an arena type thing. And then once the fight is winding down, they just run off. And all that stuff is where you see the stuff in the trailer with the woods, and he uses the bear trap on the guy and the knives. And it's pretty brutal, a lot of the violence. I appreciated it. And it's a bummer because if those action scenes were even just a decently written movie, they would be getting a lot more hype. You know, if you watch a movie like Logan, where it's also really violent, a part of what sells it is not only Hugh Jackman's performance, but that you care about Wolverine and you care about aging Professor Xavier and the little girl. So when he's just savaging people and healing, you're like, fuck yeah, go get him. With this, you're kind of laughing because it's just so over the top. The special effects are bullshit. And then the characters are all just kind of cringe. And it's a bummer because all the actors are fine, but the writing was just so juvenile and it just drags on so long. So then by the time you get to the action scenes, you're like, like the action scene was fun, but now we're back to all these people doing piss poor Russian accents and whatever the fuck else is going on. So for me, it was fine. It's inoffensively bad. It might be bad enough for it to be fun, or maybe for some people good enough to be fun. But I don't think most people would just hate it, other than maybe thinking it's too long, which it is. And this was the closeout for the Sony MCU, or whatever the fuck they were calling it, the Sony Marvel movies that included like Morbius and Madam Web, and I think Venom also, and now Craven. So I guess they're all done, unless some kind of new contract got established between the MCU and Sony, and they want to use these characters, which I doubt, except for maybe Venom, but we'll see. This was fun to watch once and move on. Pretty forgettable. I'm going to leave it here for this one. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.